you ever find yourself in this situation with a police officer and they do this with your gun, don't overreact. That's what we're going to look at today as I show you a very interesting and I believe important video that I think will teach all of us a little bit of something, because this video literally has it all. It goes from a very kind of normal interaction and escalates very quickly. This guy is a concealed carrier in Maryland, and that ups the ante just a little bit as well. And so as I show you parts of the video that I think are important to talk about, imagine that you're in this position. Of course, I want to hear what you would do if you ever find yourself in this position, or maybe you have. Leave some of those interactions down below, and I'm going to tell you maybe even personal interactions that I've had with police while carrying as well. I want to highlight the good and the bad, and hopefully we can all take something from this. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So this interaction starts out fairly simple. The officer comes to the passenger side of this guy's car, and he's pulled over initially for tint. Just one of those things. It's like, come on, man, tint, you know what I mean? Like, I understand to an extent if you're driving at night, you need to be able to see what's going on around you, but there's so many benefits to tint, actually. I just think it's a silly thing to be pulled over, whatever. That's why he is initially pulled over. And it escalates to the point where the officer decides, hey, I'm coming in your vehicle.
If you mind, I'm just gonna open the door for a second, okay?
What?
Just open the door. I'm gonna grab the firearm, okay?
Why?
Just 'cause I have to run it just to make sure, okay? You have any other firearms in the vehicle that I need to know about?
No, but that's, you know it's a violation, right?
Say it again.
You coming in my vehicle is a violation, you know that, right?
I'm just letting you know I'm running the serial number on the firearm,
What,
okay?
what for?
Just to make sure it aligns with the permit, okay?
And so you see him open the door. He basically tells the guy, I'm going to do this. And he grabs a gun. But then he gets checked and changes his mind very quickly.
You pulled me over for tint. That has nothing to do with this. You're going outside the scope of the pullover. You pulled me over for tint.
Say it again.
You're going outside of the scope for what you pulled me over. You pulled me over for tint,
Right,
then you write me a ticket for tint.
Correct.
I showed you that I'm legally and lawfully able to do that. You opened my door, which is already a violation.
Well, I thought that the door automatically opened when I reached for it. I thought that you pushed something inside the door.
I did not. I did not give you
Okay.
consent to enter my vehicle.
Okay, my apologies. I thought that when the doorknob opened, that you opened it up for me.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
That's a violation, I'm telling
got
you.
you.
You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to come in my vehicle.
All right. Are
Fourth
you
Amendment.
okay with me running your serial number?
You have no reason to do that. You pulled me over
No
for
problem.
tint, sir.
So I'm going to put the firearm back. Are you okay with me?
Yes.
Open your door.
Now you can and put it back where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So you see him kind of thinking, and when he looks off and he comes back and he's like, come again? Or excuse me, or whatever he said, you could tell when he was like looking straight ahead, he's like, you know what, maybe I think I did screw up in this situation. Now, what happens after this makes the situation 1,000 times worse, but up until this point, there's some things you need to know. This guy is carrying in Maryland. This video was from, I think, 2022, so it's a little bit older, but still important all the same. And so in 2023, October 1st, 2023, Maryland passed their new statute when it comes to concealed carry. So you're actually not allowed to open carry in a vehicle or open carry at all in Maryland any longer, but at this point in time, you could. So that's why the officer doesn't say anything about open carry. And to be quite honest with you, it doesn't even really sound like the officer has been there very long, just in the way he's presenting himself. Now, that's a good thing for our guy that's recording this, because you challenge any officer, not any officer, but some officers, when you challenge them, even when they're wrong, they do not like to admit that. And so you could have seen the escalation go up from there. It's very rarely, if ever, have I seen where a police officer is like, oh, yeah, you know what, you're right, dude. Do you mind if I put it back? At this point, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, the guy did something very stupid and unconstitutional, but then he admitted that and put the firearm back. And unless the officer has a suspicion, they cannot just enter your vehicle, right? They're not allowed to do that. And so I think his training is kind of going through his head like, holy crap, I just broke the Fourth Amendment with this guy. And so the first thing I want to say about the gun owner in this situation is having your gun openly in the car like that can be an advantage and sometimes a disadvantage. So if it's on your person and it's concealed, this situation probably would have never happened. unless you have a duty to inform the officer, which in Maryland, it's not a duty to inform state. So the other part of this too is concealed carry, of course, when your gun is holstered, like it should be. In this situation, if you have to ever pull your firearm in self-defense, you want to be able to get it quickly out of that holster when it's just sitting in the console the way it is. And I've done this too, right? I'm not going to say, oh, this is just terrible, I would never do that. But when it's just sitting there, you got to remember that if you ever have to pull that gun, now you have to physically grab the holster in order to unholster it in order to use it. Now there's some other car mounts and stuff that I think are fantastic, some magnetic mounts and other ways that you can mount your firearm in your vehicle, under the dash or on the side of your center console or whatever, that actually protect the trigger guard and all of that, but still allow easy access. I totally understand this, and it can be uncomfortable too whenever you go to sit down, depending on the gun and how you carry and all that kind of stuff. So not really gonna ding this guy too bad on the fact that he just had his gun, what looks like, in the console, in a holster. It was visible, but I believe at this point in Maryland, there's nothing wrong with that. The officer wanted to just run the serial number. Now, in some states, your permit actually has the firearms that you're going to carry listed on that permit. And those are the only guns that you can actually carry on that permit. Now, it's amazing to me how many people don't know that there is no registration in the United States when it comes to firearms. Actually, I think Hawaii is the only one that makes everybody register their guns. Super unconstitutional. That's what those citizens have to deal with. It's unfortunate. Other states have, similar things like handguns in New York and that kind of stuff, but there is no registry, or there's not supposed to be a registry anyways. When you fill out that 4473, essentially it's saying, hey, can the FFL transfer that firearm to you? That information is supposed to be destroyed. This is one of the things that good pro-gun groups are actually fighting for, to make sure that these records are actually destroyed. That's a whole separate topic for another video, but just thumbing through the comments, it was kind of interesting to see how many people don't realize there is no registry in the United States, and this is something you never want. But what he could have been doing is checking to make sure, first of all, that serial number is not tied to any kind of ongoing investigation from a trace or whatnot, and make sure that it's tied to his carry permit. So even though you don't have a duty to inform in some states, it's kind of a workaround, because now you have every single firearm that state or local county that gives you that permit, they know about, and every officer interaction that you have, that officer is going to know about. This is something I absolutely do not agree with at all, but unfortunately in some states, this is something they have to deal with. So overall, the guy recording has actually been, in my opinion, very professional in this whole thing. And I think that's one lesson from this entire video, is you should be stern with your rights. You should know your rights for sure, but that doesn't mean that you have to just fly off the hinges and act uncontrollable, because that is just going to escalate the situation, and that's not the position that you want to be in. Now remember, if this police officer violated this guy's rights, took his firearm, ran the serial number, never gave it back, or didn't put the gun back where it should have been, you fight those battles in court later. You definitely don't want to do them at that moment. Now here's the other part of the video though.
I'm True Balls, the Maryland State Police, my body cameras on. Right? The fact that you have a firearm in the car and you're doing all of this, it puts us at unease, okay? So the only thing we want to do is just check the firearm registration, just make sure it's good to go, okay? That's all it is, nothing else to it. All right, so if you mind opening up the door so I can get the firearm.
There's no legal reason for you to touch my firearm. He already violated me.
You got the permit and everything?
Right.
But it still gives us ground to check the firearm, make sure it's still legit.
Under what law? What's that?
Sorry?
Under what law?
So it gives us probable cause to check to make sure everything's good.
A second police officer rolls up, and he starts making demands that this gun owner should actually give him the gun so he can run the serial number. Now the police officer is escalating. Now he orders him out of his vehicle. This is the other part I want to touch on. In pretty much every state, I believe, if an officer asks you to step out of the vehicle, if they have a reason to do so, and they can always say officer safety, pretty much, they're going to be able to write in their report that, oh, I asked them to step out of the vehicle because it just felt safer, blah, blah, blah. They're pretty much always going to win those battles. You want to just step out of the vehicle. Now, let's say in this situation, the guy was carrying on him, he was concealed carrying, or the firearm was in the car and the officer had no clue that it was there. Well, at this point, this is where you actually want to tell them, hey, I am carrying a firearm, I have my license or whatever, I have my permit, but I just want to let you know, your hands are clearly where they can see them. And of course, you just want to kind of give them, hey, right side, 3 o'clock position. Just want to tell you, hey, I am carrying a firearm. At that point, you have to disclose, because if they start patting around, they feel a gun, and they start freaking out, that's not a situation, again, you want to be in. You want to kind of keep it as calm-headed as you possibly can, or as level-headed as you possibly can.
The door, sir?
So you have probable...
Can you open the door, sir?
You have probable cause to check my firearm.
Unlock the door. Firearms are always out, not traced and not tracked, right? So that's what all we're trying to do, is make sure everything...
First off, I have a Second Amendment right to own my firearm.
Okay.
I have a Maryland permit that's valid. You checked it.
Okay,
He has it.
Permit. That doesn't mean that firearm is registered. So if you open up this door so I can verify that registration of that firearm, we could go and about our business.
I understand that. I understand
Can
that.
you open the door so I can verify that firearm?
I'm not. He already violated me once. Came in my car without consent.
Sir,
I don't like this guy at all, bro. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna let you reach and get
Open
it.
the door.
Just roll down the window.
Right, I'm gonna let you.
Okay.
I don't want to talk to him anymore.
Just roll the window down, dude.
I'm gonna let you to reach and get
Open
it.
the door.
Just.
Right, you. It's right there. You can reach and get it. No, I'm saying go grab it.
Well, I'm not gonna cross over top of you. If you want to step outside, I can get the firearm that way.
Okay.
You want to do that, okay?
Right. Bro, stop.
Open the door up. Open the door.
This is illegal.
Open the door.
This is illegal.
Get out. Because you're doing more than it needs to be. Get out of the car.
This is illegal. Stop.
Get out of the car.
An illegal search and seizure of my property. Illegal search and seizure. All you can do is grab the firearm and then close my door.
It's all I want is the firearm. See? Making it harder than it needs to be.
This is where the guy obviously gets upset, and I don't really blame him. He says he's going to sue them, he's going to file a complaint and all that kind of stuff, and that is your right to do that. And in some situations, I would definitely pursue that. Because the one thing you'll find in some of these interactions is that, and I think in most interactions that we see that are kind of negative with cops, is that most of them go unchecked, right? You kind of see the difference here between an officer that understands at least part of the law. He understood it to a point where he returned the gun, and then one that if you question them at all, they're instantly gonna go to level 10 on the rage scale, if you will, because you question their authority. And you have the right to do that, especially when they are violating your constitutional rights. So overall, that second cop, a terrible example for law enforcement. And look, it's really none of their business. I think at the end of the day, I would rather be concealing and be in a state, hopefully, that doesn't have a duty to inform. There's nothing tied to my license that shows I carry this gun or I have a permit or anything like that, because again, it is none of their business. And while we all understand that they do have tough jobs and cops do go through a lot, and I'm an advocate for good police officers, I'm not an advocate for police officers that are willing to violate your rights in the name of safety when you have a constitutional right to have that firearm on you. This is a really interesting interaction, and I think that you can kind of learn a lot and see both sides of the law in one video. Pretty amazing. I think overall the concealed carrier actually did a pretty good job here. That second cop though, freaking terrible. There you go, man. Biggest thing, don't overreact and fight your battles. If you have some in court, don't fight them on the side of the road, because you're almost always going to lose. And it may not be in a court situation, it may be more than that. So just remember that as well. There you go. That's my opinion. Love to hear from you guys that have had interactions with police, good or bad. Leave those down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.